I'm not lying. I saw one of the candidates the other day pulling up in his little SUV, handing out these food with smiles to the homeless people. I'm like, come on, dude. Once this is over with, win or lose, you're not going to be feeding these homeless people anymore. On day one, no other candidate has expressed anything other than running away from the immigration problem and crisis. Day one, I want to sign a memo of understanding with Homeland Security under 287G, which is going to allow us to enforce some of these immigration statutes. As we're going to have one car, we're going to stop with all this car wrapping bullshit, and we're going to stop with all this nonsense that's going on. So we're going to have one uniform, one police car for all. So every time from here until August 20th that you have a lasagna, or you eat minestrone soup, or you go to the Olive Garden. I want you to think of Giordano. If you go to the Olive Garden, think of maybe this is one of Giordano's descendants that's screwed up because that's not that great a restaurant.
Ready. All right, let's bring it in.
We got an audience here.
Yeah, I hear that.
You hear that? Bring them up. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, staying true to the channel, we're running some Miami-Dade sheriff candidates through the channel, hearing what they have to say. And today, this episode is going to be just like those, but I promise you, it's going to be different.
It's going to be a good one, Nick.
It's going to be a good one. I got my man here, Jeff Giordano. Welcome to the show. Nice to finally meet you in person.
Appreciate you.
We have a little bit in common. We worked at the same agency for many years.
Yes, we have.
You retired from that agency, and I want you to talk about your experience and everything, and tell the audience a little bit about who you are.
Absolutely. Well, I'm Jeff Giordano. I'm the only Italian-American candidate on the ballot, so I should be easy to identify. I got in the police department in 1985.
Oh.
I was hired. And during my tenure, I worked as a undercover street narcotics unit with the SNU, with a street narcotics unit.
Right.
And I was an undercover buyer. Me and my partner were responsible for over 100 search warrants between us.
Right.
So I was an undercover drug buyer there. Me and my partner, Flynn, back in the day. I had long hair. I kind of fit the part. Mm-hmm. And I was the affiant of over 100 search warrants between me and my partner, and we were responsible for over 1,000 drug arrests, hand-to-hand drugs transactions. And back then, they even targeted us, saying that we were doing multiple drug buys. This is when Janet Reno was the state attorney's back then. Mm-hmm. So they really didn't have anything on us. We just knew how to do the buy. You know, you walk up to a corner, you get 5 people involved, 6 people involved. You hand the money to one, you get the money from another. And back then, there was like a mandatory 3 years minimal if you're selling within a school zone. I think it was like 3 or 5 miles within a school zone. Mm-hmm. Doesn't matter if it's midnight, 2 in the morning. Everywhere in Miami is within a school zone.
Correct.
Whether it's a daycare center, whether it's a school, they're all violent. And we had like almost 100% conviction rate. So in order to get us out of there, they opened up an investigation, which they had nothing. Even the police department back then, the FOP, backed us up and said either they get off the pot or shit in it. So as a result, they came back and they says, well, we just won't prosecute any of their cases anymore. So they had to transfer us back then. So imagine that. They had nothing on us, but it was a way to get rid of their top narcotics detectives in the street narcotics unit, which was under fire prior to me getting there with the Mikado incident and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a...
When did River Cops happen?
Prior to me getting on.
Okay.
But when I got on, there was a lot of officers that were waiting to be indicted, and I had the pleasure of riding with some of those snubs, and their attitudes. They knew they were going to be getting indicted, so it was kind of like driving around in a car. You see their attitudes, and as a rookie, you're all gun ho, and they're like. They come at you with an attitude, and you're like, what's going on with this guy? But
did you know or no? Or it's like, hey, by the way, watch out for that guy.
Well, I knew a couple of them. Baptista, I rode with him for a little while, and a couple other ones. But just like when my FTO would be off or call out or something
I got you, yeah.
It wasn't like I didn't know them directly, but you could tell the attitude of them.
Gotcha.
So when I left the street narcotics unit, I had the opportunity to be a pioneer of community policing. Mm-hmm. So the chief of police back then, Kelvin Ross, when I was in IA, he was actually the major of internal affairs.
Right.
So he knew we got a raw deal.
Okay.
So when this new program came up, community policing, it was assigning to the areas. Nobody knew what it was. We were the first ones with the take-home cars. We were the first ones with the cell phones. And he knew I got a raw deal, so he assigned me to the Brickell area back then as a neighborhood resource officer. And back then there was no commanders. We were literally the commanders for that specific area we were assigned to. And Brickell is not what it is today. It used to be plagued with gangs, extortion to businesses. When Steve Perricone originally came in with his restaurant, I remember meeting him there, and it was a little house that an old lady lived in, surrounded by gangs and gang members. And we had to go in, and we were basically the commanders of that area. And we were given a few thousand hours a month in overtime hours to effectively implement policing strategies through this new community policing program. So one of the things I did, it was data-driven policing. There were armed, violent crimes happening. There was Sheridan at 495 Brickell back then. Now it's an Indian site. The Icon is there. 2500 Brickell, you had the Hampton Inn. So you had violent armed robberies occurring. Back then they had the tags of the rental cars back then, which I was part of that task force trying to get that changed. So when we looked at the data, we started reading police reports. We realized that these places were targeted because they were easy access to I-95. So what did we do with a lot of the strategies? We placed, marked vehicles on the entrance and exit ramps of the expressways, and we were able to catch a lot of these offenders. We brought in robbery task force on overtime. We did undercover operations. We actually saved some contracts at the Sheridan that was pilots that were going to leave because of the crime that was happening. You had cruise ship companies that had contracts there, and we literally cut down these violent crimes that were there. Another thing that we did was bring in the gang detail, so it also gave me an opportunity to work with each and every one of these specific units. Danny Bernarby, your
Shout out.
Family member, cousin, great guy. We brought the gang detail in there, and it wasn't just bringing them in to kick ass and take names, as we were able to do back in those days, but it was getting these gang members in effective programs. They had the ropes course where we would take them out to Homestead, and they would team you up with a policeman and a gang member. First couple of days, you're like, hours, you're like snubbing nose with each other.
Yeah.
But after that, you realize you have to work teamwork to get over these high elements and these things to get together, to pull together, and you're challenging the other team members. So there was effective programs that we put them in, and we were able to get to know these gang members and find out what made them tick, what made them not tick. And it took a long process, but we were able to clean up that area. Worked with the state attorney's office.
Real quick, what do you think about that? The gang members, like, what do you think it was that made them be a part of what they were doing?
Well, they don't have direction. They're looking for a family. A lot of them don't have families, and they don't have a support system. Sometimes a gang is the only way to make you feel of a sense of belonging, that you belong somewhere, that you have a family. And that's what a lot of these gang members do. They take advantage of that. They take advantage of these kids that are growing up in the inner city in some locations, and they're already being used by crime, by their family putting out there, and they take them and say, hey, we got you, bro. We got friends. We got people that are going to protect you. They're not going to kick your ass on the corner anymore, because if they do, you got 50 people behind you that's going to kick their ass. And then they become part of this culture.
I can say you guys did an impact. I think it was a lot more organized back then. However, nowadays, I think it's a little more underground. They're still there, but not as organized as they used to be.
Well, this is true. We're attacking them more and more, but they're still out there, Nick. I do a lot of private investigation work now with my company.
I was going to get to that.
And we'll get to that, but I work on defense teams, and I have one MS-13 gang member, a young kid. He's still awaiting trial for several years now, where it was actually extortion from the gang that they were going to hurt his family. So what happens now, he comes down here, Coyote brings him down from El Salvador. The father wants to get him out of there where he was targeted by all these gangs. So now he goes where? West Palm Beach, one of the highest concentrations of MS-13 gang members. They see the kid walking around, they see his symbol, they see a tattoo, and they realize he's one of us. Once you're in the gang, you can't get out. So they recruit him, and he kills 2 or 3 people on their behalf, or they threaten to kill his family. So that's where it's at. It's still out there. Now you got these Venezuelan gangs coming in, crossing the border, and in New York it's a huge problem. And it's only a matter of time before they come down here to Miami, which they already are starting to do. But as far as Miami police, the areas, we've kind of driven out of a lot of that culture. We can identify them a little bit more easier, but they're still out there. You see these drive-by shootings on the expressways, on 95, the Turnpike, but thank God for the most part we're identifying these individuals a lot faster than before.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to take you off course. You were kind of running through the stuff that in the gangs, you worked with gangs alongside gangs to get rid of that, about the cars making those high-profile arrests. And then I kind of threw you off course there.
So moving on from there, neighborhood policing. So it was a matter of taking care of budgets, the budgets that we were giving with hours to implement all these police strategies. I did organized fraud investigations on First Presbyterian Church on Brickell, where I was the lead investigator as a resource officer there. We did Go Boxes, which was another organized fraud investigation that I did, literally boxes that would supposedly change the traffic lights. So we did multi-agency task force with the Department of Transportation, the FHP, and we literally served search warrants, and we arrested these people and brought them in. So it gave me a vast knowledge.
What is that Go Box?
Go Boxes. It was that they were actually selling plans, and apparently, and PIO is the one that contacted me because it was in my area that the PO box was, and we did surveillances, and every time they came, we got the victims' names off all the envelopes. Yeah. So apparently is when you go to a stoplight, you'll be able to change it from red to green. And people were buying this stuff. It was a fraud.
Where can I get one of those?
Literally, what they were selling is strobe lights. And they were saying like maybe 1 out of 1,000 lights might change.
Okay, so
with
they're playing the odds.
They're basically defrauding the public on these things, on what they were selling.
And real quick, before my wife chimed in behind the booth, I got my lovely wife. She's over there working the DJ booth.
Absolutely. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Okay, sorry. We were talking about the Go Boxes.
Yeah, I'm tracking.
Okay,
I'm tracking.
I would like to have one of those.
Exactly.
Right? I would like to have one of
From
those.
time to time.
I wish they would have worked and they would have donated one to us to check out. But and then we did post-homicide assessments. That was really big for the neighborhood resource officers, especially when Frank Fernandez was the assistant chief there. And that's all the factors that affected that homicide from occurring afterwards. And these were like extensive investigations that the resource officers did. And with that, I had the opportunity to be the spokesperson for under Chief John F. Timoney. And it's not what you think. It's not because of my good looks and my charm, and it definitely wasn't from my sound bites. Well, only a couple people knew. I actually provided him now. I know you're going to say this is a little off the wall, with extrasensory perception on some hard-to-find cases. And how I was able to do that. Yeah. How I was able to do that, I was picking him up when he came to town with him and his lovely wife.
T-Money.
Timony. Yep. I had the pleasure of picking him up every time he came down here, and I would tell him a couple of things. This is kind of like a gift that I had when I was young, and I would tell him like a couple of things that were going to happen. And the first thing, the first couple of rides were kind of like snub nose, like I'd be the only one talking. Yeah. He was like, "Who's this asshole?" Of course, he's coming down here thinking that we're all a bunch of crooks, we're all a bunch of criminals. Yeah. So by about the third or fourth time, he kind of seen that I made some sense, and I was coming up with some things. So he asked me to go to PIO under him, and that's what I did. And it sounds funny, it sounds comical. So the end of PIO, and just so you know, it's not like what you think, that you're constantly getting these visions and you're constantly getting these things. Yeah. It's like when you do, they come up with things, and then they play with you. Yeah. I mean, I look at it like guardian angels that are kind of guiding me and giving me right direction. So sometimes they play comics with you and they play things with you. So I can remember my last day in PIO, and he was being transferred as well. They were asking who the new chief of police was. And somehow my arms were lifted, and they were asking, who's this young and up-and-coming guy that's going to be the chief of police? And I think they were talking about Cabrera at the time, and he was going to be an assistant chief under Exposito. Exposito it was already said he was going to be the next chief. Yeah. But for some reason, my hands were lifted up, and I pointed to Ronald Papierre. And the shit hit the fan.
So you dubbed the wrong guy when the news
They dubbed the wrong guy. It wasn't me. It was just the powers to be above there. So literally, after that, the party was over. I was transferred. They thought Ron Papierre had something to do with that, and they transferred him to the property unit. He was the commander of property unit. So
and you're just clearing the air now.
He had nothing to do with it.
Okay. Neither did you.
Neither did I. Neither did I. So for every
good.
beginning, there's an end.
Okay.
I was a hostage negotiator also for 10 years with
Okay.
the City of Miami Police Department. And a lot of people are like, oh, what hostages do you get? It's basically a lot of, suicide victims,
Yes.
a lot of families that are held hostage where they kill the wife, they kill themselves. And this is constant. This goes on monthly. It's very traumatic effect. I had one individual blow his head off with a shotgun while I'm on the phone with the guy.
Yeah.
Another child that was held with a knife on his throat, a 2-year-old, with the father holding a knife to his throat. Very, very traumatic.
Yeah.
So it's difficult. It's very difficult to get through that kind of stuff, and then you got to go home and do your family life too. So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize the stress levels.
And then you retire.
I left and I went to Miami Dade College. I was the public safety director there
Okay.
for about 16, 18 months. That gave me a good platform on risk management procedures, active shooter strategies,
Yeah.
teaching all the students there in the college about active shooters. I do have a bachelor's degree as well with St. Thomas University, and then I opened my own agency at the same time when I separated, and that's private investigations and security work that we do.
Right.
Which with that I do mitigation on capital murder cases.
Okay.
So I mitigated, and I wrote a book, The Mitigation of Mark Sievers, and it was a very high-profile case. That's actually Netflix was filming it, but I believe they sold it to another production company, and it's a husband that murder for hired his best friend to kill his wife, and he's on death row now. So
So the husband
I lost that
murder
one.
to hire.
The husband hired his best friend.
Uh-huh.
It was a murder for hire and killed his wife, which was Teresa Sievers. She was a very prominent, and she was leading up to her own TV show as well. She was a prominent holistic doctor.
Okay.
And what people don't realize, I know when the Parkland shooter did not get the death penalty,
Yeah.
people were outraged. And my reasons for being a mitigation specialist and try to keep people off death row are different. They're like, well, how can you be a policeman? How could you be against the death penalty? Well, the facts are, if you're on death row, you're living the good life in jail, believe it or not.
Yeah.
You have a big cell. You guys, they eat all by themselves. If you're amongst the general population, within 10 years, you're dead.
Yeah.
They're going to kill you because you're a novelty. Look at Jeffrey Dahmer. They stabbed him to death. They killed him. He was amongst general population. This kid from Parkland, if they don't kill him, he's going to have to be in isolation, in solitary confinement. So now if you're on death row, you're going to last about maybe 30 years. You have close to 400 people on death row, and I think the last time was maybe a couple years ago that they put somebody down. You have 400 people there, and every other year they might get one person, and by the end of that, they either die of old age or you'll have another 20, 30 people on death row.
So you're saying they're gonna go and just not live out there the rest of their days comfortably. They're gonna
That's
go.
correct. They're going to have a cellmate.
Yeah.
Their ass is going to be grass. And believe it or not, there's statistics because they always get appeals and whatnot. And when they're taken off death row, there's cases and there's case study that they'll actually try to kill a cellmate, or they'll try to kill a correctional officer or a guard to get back on death row because the living conditions are so much better there.
Wow, that's interesting.
Hard to believe.
It
but
is.
Yes, it is.
I think we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we'll get into some of your private work now.
Sure.
And then we're gonna lead into some scenarios. And
Okay.
then we have some questions from the audience.
Sounds good.
With that being said, we'll be right back.
I'm Jeffrey Giordano, Republican candidate for Miami Dade County Sheriff's Office. Protecting our children within our schools from active shooters is my #1 priority and my commitment to you. And how I'm going to do that without affecting our budget, I am going to strategically relocate all the resources within the police department, investigative units, administrative units, community relations units, over 2,000 officers in the main station, and we are going to be placing those officers within trailers in each and every school, coordinating this with the school board police department. We are also going to work with the private sector. We have the technology out there to put shot spotters in each and every school in Dade County, and we do not have that. We can get that donated by the private sector. That will show us exactly where a gunshot is coming within the school. Shield our children and protect them. Go to Giordano4sheriff.com and see our platform.
Of course.
There it is.
I like that. I like that.
There, I have the applause sign going up now. That's why I wanted to talk about a little bit of entertainment. We're going to get into this section here. I want to talk about your private business just a little
Sure,
bit. You know,
absolutely.
Just, you already spoke on it a little bit. We'll just wrap that up, and then I want to go into some entertainment value that you bring, right?
Absolutely.
And there's a strategy behind everything. So
Yes, there is.
take the floor. You want to finish up? You were saying private investigation. You mitigate stuff. So go
okay,
ahead.
so we have a private investigation company and a security company. It's called Giordano Protection Services.
Right.
It falls under two DPAs, doing business as GPS security and also Gotham investigations.
Right.
And with that, we have a podcast, and a lot of that podcast is case reenactment. You might see a series of the psychic detective.
Yeah.
But the reason being
That's
also is that we create entertainment as well.
Right.
So it's not all what you see. People are saying, well, that guy's crazy. No, we're getting our message out there on a platform. People don't want to be bored with interviews. We have one series called the Scorned Woman of Miami, and these are actually there's only one woman there that's reenacting the role that the woman was just too distraught to be on the show, but all the other ones are like live victims that hired us to do investigations on their husbands, and we're probably going to have one of the Scorned Men of Miami coming up soon.
Yeah. But they are willing participants in that, right?
They are willing participants,
Yeah.
and it's all about entertainment.
Right.
If we do these case reenactments, of course we throw in a little sex stuff. Of course we exaggerate a little bit on the detective stuff as far as the the guardian angels and everything. Yeah, it's true to an extent, but it's also a lot of entertainment, and that's what YouTube is, entertainment. And we do that on a lot of our things that we put out there on our campaign. And I've even had some people in some of these town halls say, hey, you have something really special out there because you're getting the word out to the youth, and they're really entertaining, and you're getting the message out there in an unorthodox way, but in a way that no one else is going to sit around and listen to that nonsense.
Do you have his campaign photo?
Yeah, I do have it here.
And we want to show you guys what he's talking about, and it's nobody else is doing this stuff. I think it's.
This could be scary.
No. I'm not. I don't do gotchas.
Okay.
You have this up, and you're doing this.
Gotcha. Oh,
Boom.
yes, there we go.
You know what I'm talking about? Take a look at that right there.
Absolutely.
Where are you going to see that?
Absolutely. Where are you going to see that?
You know, because I was looking for a headshot for you, and I'm like, I need to find a headshot. And these are like your headshots here.
Yes, they are. And actually, we did our opening press conference, and we did it in the ghetto, singing in the ghetto to a huge crowd behind us. And that was, and we put that out there as well, and that one's got a bunch of views and stuff as well. But it was singing a song in the ghetto. Everybody was in the ghetto, and it was a great, great moment for all of us. I didn't stand behind the police department. I didn't have City Hall behind me. We actually had a community that's infected with crime in a corner where they're drinking off the chain, where they're selling drugs off the chain in this small community, and they don't want this crime there. So that's where we went and did our press conference.
And I think it's people that are outside the community that don't understand that they want the police, right? Some people that are, what I mean by that is the people that live in the community, they're pro-police. They're like, yes. And the people that live outside that don't live those day-to-day tribulations that they go through, they're like, oh, the police are coming too hard. They're patrolling this area too hard. When you talk to the residents, it's like, no, we want to see more police officers.
Absolutely. A lot of these condominiums, apartment complex, even in the inner city, we're going to be doing a threat assessment on one of them in Opelika now. That's like a HUD project and stuff. But the people that are coming in and selling drugs, they're not the people that are living there because there's strict guidelines on Section 8 and stuff like that. If you're selling drugs, you have people living there, they'll throw you out. They don't want to be thrown out. So the people that are trespassing are coming from other areas, selling their drugs, and they're held captive in their own apartments.
Yeah, that's actually a strategy that you use, that you tell the person that's living there, that's allowing this stuff to happen in front of them, is, look, you're going to lose your house if you don't call us so we can get involved and remove that person, or you remove that. But you're going to lose your house, and they're like, "Whoop, okay, we don't want to lose our house."
Exactly.
So that's a good strategy. So going to go back to the entertaining, informative stuff, and you touched on it a little bit about it's a form of entertainment, a satire, the psychic detective. It's just a skit to get that eyeballs over there.
It's a sexy way of getting the message out there.
Right.
And a lot of the cases, they are true, but we don't take cases that are based on just extra perception. Visions from the guardian angels. I mean, we only take cases if it has a solvability factor.
Right.
And then if the other portion comes in, as I mentioned, it is part of the investigation. And we do have some live interviews that we did that we put out there and stuff like that. And the reason that we kept Gotham Investigations to start it again with like 0 followers and do like Giordano for sheriff, and then you got to get 10 people and 20 people involved, it's very difficult. And I will say that I actually, it kind of hurts the channel a little too, because if you don't stay in tune of what you're doing, they're like, this guy's all over the place, psychic detective, and now he's like the sheriff, and now he's singing in the ghetto, and now he's doing interviews with women that are, from the private investigation side. So I'm just saying, hang in there, guys. We're going to get back on track, but right now we got a mission, and that's to save Dade County.
You're absolutely correct when it comes to that. They want what they signed up for. If you give them something else, like, what is this? Exactly. Yeah, but you just hopefully they're there for you and your value that you bring, and then it's being heard, right? Because you're being heard. You're making that first initial shocking, like, what did he just say? And then the way that you clean it up.
It's a platform, and it's a way to get your message out. And above all, at the end of the day, it is entertainment. Because it's on YouTube, and it's entertainment, or we put these things out on Instagram. But there is a message that we're getting out there. And that message might not be heard, because I'm sure you go over your analytics and you kind of see when people cut off.
Exactly.
So before you get your message out there, I was noticing, well, shoot, people are like listening to the first 30 seconds, minutes. So when you start with a little engagement and entertainment, now they're staying for a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and shit, now I get my message out. They might cut off in 2.5 minutes, but my message is out there, and they got it.
And I've seen your stuff, and I'm like, he's doing that. People don't understand at where you're operating. I'm like, he's doing this at a level that is scientific behind it. He's he's hooking people with some kind of crazy or I would say unorthodox statement that you make. For instance, the homeless. We have a obese homeless.
Yes. Okay. So you saw that one, and I'm not lying. I saw one of the candidates the other day pulling up in his little SUV, handing out these food with smiles to the homeless people. I'm like, come on, dude. Once this is over with, win or lose, you're not going to be feeding these homeless people anymore.
What was the statement that you made so they can understand what you said?
That we're going to have an obesity problem by the end of 2014, and that's because all these candidates running for mayors, running for sheriffs, they think that the path to winning is taking a picture feeding the homeless. And it's ridiculous. It's crazy. And
the way that you, and what I heard, after you say that, you get everyone's attention. He just said, well, we're going to have obese homeless people, right? That wasn't the point. The point was they need help.
They need help. They need help constantly. When I was a neighborhood resource officer, I knew each and every homeless person's name. That was in my area, and their problems. It's not just mental health. A lot of them are just tough on their luck type of thing. But a lot of it is mental health. But knowing what their games are they into drugs? Are they into liquor? Are they just mentally disturbed that they're out there? Some of them don't even do drugs or don't even drink. And there's plenty of food out there for them to get. I even mentioned that in the podcast as well. I kind of said, if they want Italian food, there's an Italian church that pops up. If they want, Jewish food, knishes, here comes a synagogue pulling up. So there's a platform of buffets for them to eat at. But yet, every candidate out there runs to feed the homeless and takes a picture, feeding the elderly and feeding the homeless, and picking up dog shit in the park, too. You think they're really going to be picking up dog shit after the elections? I mean, come on. And I saw one crazy lady running for commission. She's a friend of mine, so I shouldn't say crazy lady. North Bay Village. She was picking up plastic in high heels, standing on rocks at the bay in North Bay Village. I mean, come on.
Well, you know what though, and then
maybe she gets a vote for that.
There you go.
I don't know.
There you go. But I like the way that I know I'm in the biz. I know what you have to get views. Otherwise your message falls on who you
falls on deaf ears.
Yeah, you're talking to nobody, right? So you stand out. You start out with that thing, and you're not saying that we're not going to feed homeless. You're saying there's other things that you have to do.
Absolutely,
you can't just do this.
Exactly.
And I understood. And I understood the way you delivered it. And, and I get, you're like, oh, you're getting Jeff Giordano on? Oh, my God, bro. Oh, you're about to get canceled. I'm like, no. I think everything's going to be good.
Everything is fine. Everything is good, Nick. Trust me. I like I said, I knew every homeless person's name. I knew their tricks. I knew what they did, what they didn't do. And I also provided them with, hey, if that's what makes them happy, I'll give them $5 or $10, Christmas time or whatever. If they want to go buy some beers with it, if that's what makes them happy, That's their life. Let them freaking do it. As long as they're not hurting people and robbing people, we try to give them help any way possible. Give them a shirt, give them some food, do different things, but not do it hypocritically of, because I'm running for a campaign, I'm going to run out there now feeding every homeless person in town. That's not Jeff Giordano. I'm sure that's not Nick.
Yeah, no.
And you're in it to help people, not to make fun of them.
Yeah, I like it. Or just use them for
political purposes. To think you're gaining ground with that.
So with that, can you give us some of your platform on what you're running on? What are some of the things that you hope to bring as sheriff?
Okay, some of the things I hope to bring as sheriff. Number one is we have to protect the children inside of our school systems, and I have the formula to do that, and I'm sure we'll talk about that later on in your show. I want to curb the drug problem that we are facing, that we're going to face. It's going to be huge with this fentanyl crisis by the end of the year. These street takeovers, it's gotten out of freaking control, where it's, it can take a life. It can take a life. Fire rescue cannot respond to locations. Police officers can't respond to locations. I want to mitigate and I want to get on this human trafficking problem. It's only going to get worse with all the people coming across the border, and I want to take a stance on immigration, and I'll tell you later on how I plan to do that. And I do want to address condominium fraud. Yeah. And you could do all these things, but if you don't have the state attorney's office behind you after you do this whole investigation and you don't have their backing, it's all for nothing. So I want to look at what will be effective, what the state attorney's office, you have to work with them on what they're going to back us up on. Okay.
Do you have, are we good on time?
Yes, we're good. Mm-hmm.
All right, so I want to start, I'm going to let you finish. Good?
Okay.
Good?
Yes, sir. We're
okay,
good.
so I would like to start. So, go ahead.
I do want to add one thing.
Yes.
And I want to change the culture within the police department.
Okay.
And that culture is bringing the trust back to police officers. I want to reevaluate the body cam program that police officers have. You must say, oh, reevaluate it. You can't take away the body cams. The perception that you have wearing a body cam is a different perception of somebody that's watching the video.
Yeah.
They started out with a good platform for it, but now it's getting out of control. I even see the city of Miami is taking a step further now. They're going to have psychologists maybe looking there if you're on a mental health scene, and they're going to walk you through how to handle the call. But now it's becoming a safety issue for police officers. Why? Because you have it on your chest. If you're taking a corner and you're in an active shooter scene, or you're trying to enter a room, what do? You usually have the gun on your chest. You punch it out as you're coming around the corner. But now, instead of punching it out from here, you're exposing yourself even at 1 little millimeter or inch or two. That's exposing the police officer. We have to put trust back in police officers. When I was a rookie, we would go to roll call and we would do a pledge allegiance to the flag. By doing that, that would reiterate what we are here for, what we stand for. That's the protection of civil rights and our citizens, the right to due process, the right to freedom of speech, and the protection of illegal search and seizure. What else do? We bowed our head for a moment of silence. It doesn't mean they have to take prayer. They can reflect back on their family, reflect back to the day. And then we turned to our partner and we shook their hands and we said, hey, be safe out there. But it was a family. After our crew was done, literally we would have some beers and we would talk about the day and we would shoot the shit and we would sit there in front of the police station. Now it's like you could be in a crew and you don't even know that person. You don't have lunch with that person. You just kind of go back and forth, and it's just your machines. The roll call comes, look at the bolos, bad guys, don't do this, don't do that. No pledge of allegiance, flag stands there. You're out in the street, and boom. And also we have to take strategic measures towards police officers. In other words, they're showing up on critical scenes, homicide scenes, car accidents, where people are died, children are raped, and then they're expected to go right back out on the street.
Yeah.
But if they shoot somebody, God forbid, then you got to see a psychiatrist and you got to get cleared. But these are things that we have the #1 divorce rate out of any profession. So
we're still married.
Here it is, but here it is.
We're the anomaly.
You see a homicide scene, there you might see a child, that's murdered. Now you have another family member trying to rush in. It takes a lot of courage for that policeman to tell a family member you can't come in to see your son or daughter that was just killed by your husband or shot and killed in a suicide there. But now, 2 hours later, there's no debriefing. There's nothing unless you're on a SWAT team, unless you're a negotiator. No debriefing done to patrol. Now you go home and you want to take Nick to the movies.
Yeah.
how do you think he's doing? And you're like, what's the matter, Nick? What's the matter? You're sitting there. You look angry. You look pissed off. And that reflects on your marriage. Why? Because he just went through a traumatic incident. He wasn't debriefed. He has no backing. In order to love the community, we have to give love to the police officers and show them that we care. And then once they can take care of themselves, take care of their family, then they can take care of the community.
I like that. I think that's good. I think that's, suck it up and move on. Days have passed, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
But yeah, to have that outlet, or at least to say, hey, anybody else feeling this way? Anybody else? Oh, thank God I was the only one. And that also helps build how do you say that?
Yes, it does. Camaraderie.
There it
now
is.
You got me stuttering.
But that also helps because you went
Camaraderie.
through, exactly.
Like
Camaraderie, right? One of those. It helps build a bond.
Yes,
right?
it does.
So if you went through it, you had similar feelings. She went through it. We all went through it. And then that helps build, hey, we went through something together,
So I'll give you an example. When I was a hostage negotiator in Flagami, the one I told you, he blew his head off with a shotgun.
Yeah.
We didn't know he had his sister that he killed inside, and he had his grandmother inside, and their body was just all decayed up. It was slime. He had them wrapped in blankets and sheets. SWAT team goes in. They're slipping over the slime. The smell comes out, just engulfs the SWAT truck that I was sitting in, comes up there. And you know what my debriefing was after, regular debriefing with the SWAT team?
Yeah.
The next day, I'll say probably like a week later, Homicide comes down with the thing and says, hey, you did a good job, laughing. And they gave me a copy of the video where I had the picture of the guy's head blown off and just his neck there. So, hey, policeman humor, yes. But does it have an effect? Yeah, sometimes I wake up and say, oh, my God. And knowing that that's the last guy I talked to, the last guy that took his life. And,
you were the last one speaking.
Yeah, exactly. Is he going to hell? I mean, is he going to tell you, by the way, I spoke to Jeff. You might want to talk to him. Is he going to heaven? I don't know. I doubt it with what he did. But either way, I'm freaking the hell out. Is my name going to come up when he goes up or down? Is
he be waiting for you?
Exactly. I don't want any recommendations from that guy.
Oh, man. Well, with that being said, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get into some scenarios when you're wearing the big cowboy hat as sheriff.
Sounds good.
And what you're going to do with some scenarios.
Attention first responders. Introducing Griffin Worldwide Travel Agency. Crafted with you in mind. With over 15 years of dedicated service, it's owned and operated by a 3-generation law enforcement family. Proudly endorsed as the official travel agency of FOP Lodge 1 in D.C. Join them as they partner with Miami FOP Lodge 20 for an unforgettable fundraising cruise right after their national conference in 2025.
Or set sail on a Bleeding Blue cruise to support a noble and worthy cause.
From cruises to all-inclusives, Europe and beyond, they handle it all. And what they truly excel at, personally escorted small group adventures. Because for those who serve, every journey deserves the utmost care and attention. So book your next adventure with Griffin Worldwide Travel, where every trip is a mission of excellence. To book your trip today, check out the link in the description. Now let's get back to the video.
All right, so 2016, there's a trend. 2016, there was an election, and shit got a little crazy. Just a little crazy in 2016. 2020, things got pretty crazy.
Really
I would
nuts.
say really nuts
Yeah.
in 2020. Now here comes 2024 election time. Who knows? We're not there yet, but if I was a betting man, I would say that there's something is going to pop off. I don't know what. It just seems weird around election time. One, law enforcement always becomes the scapegoat for whatever it is. Let's, blame a law enforcement officer or something. And sometimes it's rightfully so. Sometimes it's just they're throwing fuel to the fire because they know it's going to incinerate and people are going to get worked up, right? Because they want to cause a little disruption, right? So 2024 is coming. Who knows what's going to happen? You get elected sheriff. You're inheriting whatever's going on, right? Because let's say one guy gets elected, the other side, and we're talking about presidential, the other side is not going to be happy. They're going to think something happened, especially if something smells a little off. Or like, I've seen this before. I know what this is. You guys are fooling us. Let's go. And it's a shit show. The 2025 shit show, and now you're the sheriff. What do you plan on doing to ensure that the Miami-Dade residents, everyone's safe, and they're not getting this residue from the elections there? Because you're not going to be the sheriff as it's going on, right? Because you don't get elected until
Correct. Yes.
January 6th, right? So what do you plan on doing to help mitigate some of that stuff?
Well, we're a little bit smarter now
Yeah.
than 2020 with the COVID scenario that kind of came in there with the masks and the lockdowns type of thing, which now you see some things are coming out that wasn't probably the proper or right thing to do.
Right.
You know, luckily we had a governor that kind of freed us up a little bit, so it kept our businesses running and kept a lot of things in place. Something's coming, Nick, like you said. We have 350,000 immigrants that made it to Florida. There's probably a reason that they brought them down here, put them down here. They're going to try to steal the election again. Mm-hmm. You know, they're going to try to steal the election again. I kind of foresee that happening. But with that, there's always a reset button. I think people are finally getting fed up with what's going on. And I'm not saying, I'm running as a Republican candidate. I'm not saying Democrats are bad. I've voted for Democrats before. I always think the best candidate should be voted on, whether he's Democrat or Republican. I just think the way that this country is headed, that Biden is not the correct candidate. Do I think Trump is? I support him, 100%. I don't support a lot of his rhetoric that's behind him. But if it's a choice, I think we have no choice. We have to save America. We have to get back on ground. What's going to happen? Is it going to be another pandemic that we're going to be faced with coming up that's going to lock down people from getting out in the streets? And don't get me wrong, it's not like I'm saying, well, we learned from COVID, we're going to be out in the streets running around. Maybe there is a pandemic that we can't get out in the streets, that we can, die if we go out there. Something is coming, and it's not going to be good. They're not going to just give up that easy. You see in New York, people are coming out to Trump rallies. He was in Philadelphia. People are coming out to Trump rallies. People are fed up with what's going on with the immigration crisis. There's a legal path to citizenship, and for some reason, they're not following it. There's a reason that they're trying to turn the United States upside down.
So, as sheriff, what do you like? You're gonna be in tune with that stuff. Like now you're the sheriff. You're inheriting this stuff.
Absolutely.
You got people here that are embedding themselves in. You're saying there's illegal immigrants in South Florida, in the Miami-Dade area. Like, how do you? What are your plans on?
Well, number one is communication with the community.
Yeah.
You have this anti-Semitism that's popping up everywhere. The Anti-Defamation League reported 3,300 incidents of anti-Semitism in the last 3 months alone of 2023. And that includes over 1,300 protests on college campuses. That's not freedom of speech that they're doing. If the sheriff is going to be in charge of the fire department too, and colleges don't want us to go in to enforce this stuff because a lot of times it's private property, well, you know what? If it's a fire hazard, we're going in and we're putting a stop to this nonsense. They can sue us. They could do what they want later. But if there's a person that gets hurt on one of those campuses, and this is all a result of what you're saying. This is what leading up to the election. This is the chaos that's coming all over the place.
Yeah.
We can go in and get that offender. We do if they're inside a home. If they're barricaded, we can knock down that wall and go in. If they're with 500 people and they're an offender, you know what? We're going in there and we're going to get you. Okay. But we're not going to put up with this. Stand back. Let 500 people till the college burns down. I don't care if the president of the campus says, no, we don't want police here. We're going in and saving lives.
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at is like, there's going to be somebody pushing some kind of narrative, and they're going to want things to pop up all over to create that chaos all over the nation, in the major cities and everything. And it just so happens that Miami is a major city, major area, where you're going to be the sheriff of this county, that you got to ensure that those little things that they might hide behind and say, no, we're just doing this peaceful protest. This is just a peaceful protest. Meanwhile, they're spray painting stuff, things are on fire, that you're going to come in and say, no, not on my watch.
So supporting terrorism, the rhetoric speech that they're talking, the hatred speech, that's not freedom of speech. I mean, everything comes to Miami. We agree. Look at the little kid, Elian.
Yeah.
It started out somewhere else, and sure enough, wingled his way back to Miami. And, Dade County, here it is. Here's your issue. So everybody loves Dade County. Mm-hmm. And they love it for problems, but they also love it, the political atmosphere here, the banana republic, and you have to navigate yourself through the proper direction and know, is this what they want? Is this what they're trying to do, make police departments and officers set them up for failure to show the violence? But with the proper training, I'm not going to say we're going in and kicking ass and taking names, but with the proper training, we can nip this stuff in the butt before it gets to violence.
All right. Speaking of things that pop up all over the place, I want to get into these street takeovers. Right?
Yes,
we've seen them all over the nation. Usually start in like California, Seattle, different places, and now we're like, I never come here, and then boom, it started to happen here. We saw it on the news. Actually, we spoke about somebody possibly dying. Somebody did die from a shooting. So there's things, and then the cars hitting each other. They're killing themselves within, and then they're also preventing people from traveling. Do you have any plans on mitigating or stopping that to end these street takeovers, or at least send a message like if you're going to be punished big time if you're doing this stuff?
So the problem that we face is, we give a traffic ticket, we give a speeding ticket. They don't give a shit. These kids with money, a lot of them are from South America. They're down here for college. Their parents have money. They get an attorney that takes care of these speeding tickets. I've seen it on Brickell Key, on Brickell. The more tickets you get, they take it, they sign it. They don't even get any points on their license. So if we keep on doing what we're doing, we're going to keep on getting what we're getting. So my approach is, we have to put undercover special investigation officers within these groups that are doing it. But we have to build a RICO act against the ones that are there. And you might say, oh, RICO statute, well, how can you do that? You have the shooting that happened. Well, blame it on the organizers. We have the technology to follow these people on social media, know who the players are, know who the organizers are. Don't arrest them right away, but let's build some cases on them. Look, in 2018, I think it was, the RICO statute is extended a little bit more than what you think it is. The painkillers, the opioid crisis, they actually did a RICO case against, the states did it against the manufacturers of opioid, saying that it was for profit and they were defrauding the community of what it was really for. So if they could build it on that against drug manufacturers, we could do it on these individuals. And it's very easy to do, too. We can take all the statistics that street takeover. We could look at the calls for service. We could look at fire rescue responses. Did anyone die that might have been saved? Well, you know what? That's a manslaughter charge. You're obstructing the streets, and now rescue couldn't get to this person that had a heart attack, and he died. Build a RICO case. You're going to see how quickly they don't follow these people anymore, and the leaders will be disseminated. Win or lose, they're going to go down.
Real quick for the audience, explain what RICO is.
It's a racketeering statute. Basically, if you're a criminal enterprise and you're an organizer of criminal enterprise, if you're involved in like 3 or more incidents, it falls under the RICO statute. So these are organizers that are committing crimes, that are organizing groups, and they're basically, bringing the community to its knees.
Right. So, and it started, back in with the mafia?
Yes, it did. It started back in the mafia days, and don't get me wrong, when Italians ran this town, it was a lot better than what's going on now.
So that's why you're trying to get back over there, forget about
back it. At them, forget about the RICO statute and organized crime.
I like it. We got those street takeover knuckleheads. You're going to address them.
Yes.
Now, this is something recent, something that's going on. It doesn't really directly affect us. However, it could, right? And it goes with right off our coast. There's these Russian warships that pulled up in Cuba, right? And I know you're sheriff. You don't have no jurisdiction on that. However, if something was to happen and those warships were to, let's call it, pop off, I think the residents of Miami-Dade County might be affected by something. They even said they had a nuclear submarine that was down there. So as sheriff, what do you plan on with something like that, where it falls out of your scope? Are we communicating with the feds? And are you going to have that open line of communication? Because you have all the residents saying, holy shit, because I know I thought about it. If something does happen, we're going to get hit. Boom. I was like, oh, Miami's good until these Russian warships show up. And now you're like, uh-oh. Now we're within the touch there. So what do you think about that, especially if you're sheriff? Now you inherit this as like, uh-oh, how do I address this?
Well, there's a good and bad thing to that. The good thing is, well, number one, we don't have jurisdiction, federal or jurisdiction. We don't have international waters jurisdiction. But the good thing is if they do show up in Cuba, we're going to have every warship of the U.S. down here. We're going to have tons of fighter, aircrafts in Homestead Air Force Base. So other than a nuclear attack, I think we're going to be protected, the state of Florida, more than anything else. And we won't have to worry about a Mariel boat lift happening as long as we have U.S. cruise ships out there and the Coast Guard just putting a border, so we can take a relief on that. But what we are going to have to worry about, it's going to affect our economy here in South Florida. And what I mean by that is, yeah, people are going to be afraid. They're going to be on edge. They're going to be on jitters. There's going to be another Cold War.
Cold War, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Cold War is going to be like a face-to-face standoff, so you're not going to have tourism coming down here.
Yeah.
So what is that going to affect? That's going to affect a lot of these restaurants. That's going to affect a lot of hotels. Layoffs are going to happen. People are going to need money. They're going to do crime. But most importantly, we have to be in touch with the community, the groups in our community leaders, because you're going to have protests.
Yeah.
I mean, look at all the Cuban people. Look at all the Latin people in South Florida. You're going to have protests, anti-Cuba protests, Russian protests, and it's going to be chaos. You know, how do you protect freedom of speech, let them get their message out, but, you know, assure that the safety? And you're going to have a lot of protests here. So that's how it's going to affect local law enforcement agencies here. And we do that with communication with other law enforcement officers, memos of understanding with other police departments. And every agency has a liaison with the federal government.
Yeah.
You know, that's how we know, are we waking up today on a yellow alert, on a Homeland Security green alert? Is it red alert? I think we've always been on yellow at least since 9/11. So you always have that liaison and communication to the chief's office, whether it's a small agency, a large agency, and that's, you know, thank God that that's the way it is these days. So you do have communication out there.
Yeah, that's good. It's just I'm paying attention to things that are happening around, and sure, it seems like something's gearing up for something.
Something is gearing up for something, and they're trying to push us into this war, I think.
Yeah.
That, you know, look what happened on October the 8th in Israel.
The 7th.
The 7th.
Yes.
Okay. Well,
Go
I'm a
ahead.
day late. I must have slept late that day. But, you know, hey, first of all, my heart goes out to all those victims and all the kidnapped victims. But they had the chatter out there. They knew that this was coming. You know, 9/11, they had the chatter out there. They knew it was coming. Why are they trying to push us into a war here with Ukraine and Russia? There's something going on at the higher powers to be or above our putting together this scenario here. Whether it's like COVID, where they want to gear the world's population and put it down some, we have the technology today that we don't even have to have boots on the ground.
Yeah, that's true. Well, we can roll right into a technology question, since you mentioned that. You know, and you said we have technology, we don't have to put boots on the ground. So, and that goes with, you know, AI, you know, drones, things like that.
Sure.
As a sheriff, we can implement some of this stuff, technology. You have the real-time crime center with all the cameras, license plate readers, things of that nature. Do you see AI or technology helping out, and how do you plan on implementing technology into the sheriff's department to help your police officers out there do their job?
Well, it's the technology's out there. Agencies are already starting to use some of it. The problem is, how much does the federal government allow you to use?
Right.
And what I say by that is the government's always like 30, 40 years ahead of what they release to the public. And with that being said, when I went to the DEA school, when I was in the street narcotics unit, we were talking over like 30 years ago, they sat us in there and the DEA showed us about thermal imaging, that you could literally see a suspect running inside the house. You could see two people having sex on a bed through the roof of their thermal imaging of the body. So why haven't we used this with SWAT teams? Why do we have to send a robot in there with a camera? Why do we have people making an entry without knowing what the doors are? I mean, this is 30-some years later.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how advanced that technology is now? So why don't police departments use this? They say we're violating people's rights, but this is officer safety. Literally. Now, if a homicide happens, I don't know what the time frame is, but you could follow that body heat and see exactly where that person went after that. So that technology's out there. Artificial intelligence, I mean, this is a whole new road to success for policing agencies, and it's getting harder and harder out there for the bad guys. What I mean by that, we could take statistics, we could take crime data, we could put it in a computer, and it can actually tell us how to deploy our resources even better. As you mentioned, pictures and photographs, FBI, federal agencies, they're already using artificial intelligence, not only for facial recognition, but body recognition. What I mean by that is people have certain mannerisms, certain postures. So if they're standing a certain way and now they see them on Instagram, they might even be in the background in a stand, and they already identify it and they put it out there. So these are things that are great and are out there. Actually, some of the candidates are already using it. I've seen it on one of our town halls, a couple of them, where a candidate will put the question in artificial intelligence, because one of them was sitting next to me on 2 separate occasions and putting the question in, and he's trying to read it to where the moderator was from Channel 10 and says, well, I guess it's okay to look at our notes, but can we put the phones down?
Like a chat GPT?
Yeah, that's what he was putting in, chat GPT. Yeah.
Wow.
So as far as that, we could use it for administrative work. We could use it for, police reports. We could use it for trying to find similarities in crimes, whether it's a burglary scene, or are they going in through the rear window? They could put all that data in. Okay, we got 10 with the rear window, we got 50 with the front door. Is this the same subject? We could also use it if we take over corrections, that's still undecided right now. But what I mean by that is, before you release people on probation or whatnot, are they a risk? You could put in all their criteria, all their risk factors, and that's going to pop right back out at you. 80%, 90%. But artificial intelligence is the wave of the future, especially for police departments.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Some candidates think we're not there, nowhere near it. Some candidates embrace it. It seemed like you embracing it. I think I'm a believer of that. It's coming. It's here.
Well, it's here already.
Yeah,
I mean,
and we just got to figure out how to implement it into the police agency, because the attrition rate for police officers, number of retiring, those coming on, there's not a lot behind. And then they're even there a couple of years and like, oh, that's not for me. That longevity, that them staying there throughout their entire career, but there's still a need for police officers. So how do we fill that? Technology comes in just to facilitate and help these existing officers alleviate some time on calls and everything.
And without telling the bad guys exactly how to get away with things, they're already using it. These jewelry store heists that are happening throughout Florida, they're already using it. What they do is they can see every cell phone number that call comes in within a radius within that jewelry store robbery. So they're taking all these numbers, they're putting them in some cases into artificial intelligence. Now another one happens in Miami Beach, another one happens in St. Petersburg. They're taking all those phone numbers and putting them in, and it's spitting it out. Now you have the same phone number in 2 different places and identifying these individuals, who they are. So it's being used in law enforcement. You have to stay one step above, and it could also help with cyber attacks, cyber crimes. Artificial intelligence can monitor all the traffic that's coming in on the internet and whatnot, even to a police agency. So it's here, and agencies are using it. Whether or not I understand it, I don't, but that's why you get the proper people in the proper places, and you make them the guru of it, and you move on from there, and you get the highest technology that you could possibly give your policing agency.
So, and I like that you plan on surrounding yourself with people. You're not an expert in everything, so you'll get people around you.
Far from an expert in everything, but you have to have those that are, and then you have to have those that are buying in. You're pretty much going to be a head coach coming in. Yeah. So you got to get the team to buy into what you want, and part of that is, you have to buy into, what's your view on artificial intelligence. You get like 5 or 10 people that are into technology and get the connections. Okay, this is your guy right here. And then you get a second guy just in case something happens. So, once we're not left in the blank there. But we have to move forward with technology, because the bad guys ain't sitting back. Yeah. They're one step ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, we're going to take a short break, come back, we're going to finish those scenarios, and we're going to do the hot seat. It's going to get hot in here. All right, here we go. If you're enjoying this historic conversation on what it's going to take to become Miami-Dade Sheriff, make sure you go back. I created a playlist with all the different candidates. Go back and watch those so you guys can get a better feel for these candidates and what they have to offer. Now let's get back to the podcast. Oh, remix! And we're back.
We're here. We are here.
That's it. We're back, and let's get serious, because we were in these scenarios as we left off, and now I want to continue these scenarios and get to that hot seat. But the first scenario is kind of serious. Actually, it is very serious. We're talking about active shooters. The most recent one here, South Florida, and the only one really that I know of that really made headlines, that Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, just north of us, Broward County. Unfortunate incident. There were some shortcomings, some things that we learned about that incident. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we've had one in Miami-Dade County. How do you plan, as sheriff, on keeping that record going?
Okay, well, first you have to give support to the police officers. What happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was a tragedy, and then you see that they arrested the one officer for child neglect. the message that they were sending to the officers. I can remember speaking to a couple of officers afterwards. They were outraged not only at the victims that were shot, but outraged at the officer. And they were like, well, I'll tell you, unless my kid is inside that school, if I get a flat tire going there, I can't get indicted. And I was like, this is the message that they're sending to these officers.
Yeah.
And now you see what happened in Broward, these 4 officers. Again, my heart goes out to the family of the victims. But if you're involved in a felony and you shoot as a police officer and you happen to hit somebody else, that individual gets charged with the homicide because he created this to begin with. And it's the same state attorney, by the way.
Yeah. The
same state attorney that indicted these 4 county cops, he indicted that officer for child neglect. Turn this whole case scenario around and say that officer was hiding in a staircase and this bad guy would have came by, because you don't know what sounds he hears. You don't know what he's listening to, and he would have blew the guy's head off. Then he would have been a hero all of a sudden, sitting on the other side. So how do we? Number one is that, as Trump says, Russia wouldn't invade Ukraine if he was president. Well, this state attorney would not have arrested these 4 Dade County officers if I was sheriff. Number one, I would first call my partners in BSO and say we need to deputize some of our Dade County officers to BSO, and that state attorney's better be running a straight line with him and his entire family with that bullshit, because we have to back our officers up, tragic or not tragic. We have to stand behind them.
That's transferred intent, right?
Correct.
Something like that happens.
Absolutely, yes.
You want to just really quick, in 2 sentences, explain what transferred intent is?
Transfer intent is if you're committing a felony and you have
bang, bang,
a
bang,
gun.
I'm shooting.
Exactly.
Bang, 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 I'm
now,
shooting.
Now I go to shoot you in good faith, trying to save another life, but I just happen to shoot a civilian or somebody next to you. That's transferred intent. You're the one that gets charged with the felony,
Correct.
with the crime, with the homicide, not the police officer. What message are you sending? This is what we're training them to go to a scenario, to engage an active shooter, which they did, a hostage situation, a hot crime scene, and now you're telling them not to engage?
Yeah.
You really think that the response time is going to be that grand? It's not. So how do I plan to address active shooters? Let's go back to that. As I mentioned, my number one platform is protecting kids inside the school. How do I plan to do that? A lot of the other candidates, they're like, oh, we need more policemen, we need this. We have to look at what we could do within the budget we currently have, because if tomorrow the mayor says, hire 200 more police officers, then you're going to hear the candidates, well, I just can't do that because it takes time. You get 100 applicants, you only have 3 or 5 that qualify, and these things take time.
Right.
So I plan to dismantle the police department on 25th Street strategically. All the resources that are there. You have over 2,000 some officers, burglary units, investigative units, administrative units. You have community relations units, fingerprint ID units. Place all these units inside trailers, inside schoolyards, while coordinating this with the school board police agency. So we're the 3rd largest school system in the United States is Miami Dade County Public Schools. So how can we do this without affecting school grounds? These trailers, I don't know if you know it, back in the day, FHP used to have trailers in all these schools and stuff, and you didn't see this stuff happening. Yeah. So you have these trailers inside the school. If a community needs to access it, write a report, they can do it on the sidewalk, they can come up, they don't have to cut through the school. Now if it's, say, a burglary unit, we're not going to bring offenders there. The offenders will still be brought to interrogation rooms on 25th Street. However, we're going to be putting like 2,000 police officers inside trailers, inside schools, with mapping inside the trailers of that school, and part of them being assigned to that area as an investigator, they're also going to be practicing active shooter techniques. And another one, we have the technology. As we said with this individual with the Parkland shooting, he didn't know where the shots were coming from, so he claims. We have the technology of shot spotters. Why don't we have this in schools? We can engage with the private sector. Just imagine any company would be willing to donate to a school a shot spotter, put them in the monthly school magazine, put them in the PTA magazine. This one is sponsored by whatever, Channel 10, WIOD, or X Corporation. Yeah. The shot spotters throughout the school where we can identify where those shots are coming from, put it inside the trailer. Why are we doing roll calls still inside the police station? All these roll calls need to be done at churches, synagogues, in front of schools. We have to send a message. The message is not just having a police officer outside and sitting in his police car. We need them inside the schools. We need to interact, and we have to start interacting with these schools. And what I mean by that is They suspend the kids sometimes 5, 7, 10 times. Nobody knows about it.
Yeah.
You know, we have to have a unit that's going to work with these schools. Oh, little Joey is suspended. Okay, why is he suspended? You know, like we do with the gang members. Let's go there, talk to Joey. Is this a problem with his family? Is there a domestic violence issue? Is he getting, you know, raped, you know, by a stepdad, by a father, by somebody? You know, let's get to the root of the problem before it turns into a situation. And then what happens is people look for justice in different ways. So they feel that they're a victim now. They're a victim at home. They're a victim of the school system being suspended, but now no one reaches out to them. And that could be that police officer, the officer friendly that meets with the kid and finds out what's happening, what's going on. So we do need to be in touch with our community. I think by strategically relocating all these resources, we're not asking for increased budget. We're actually doing it within our budget, and we might even be making money because we could now rent those officers out to businesses in the community and use that money for shot spotters and for these communities. And we'll still have our monthly CompStat meetings, and we'll still have everybody come together, but why not do it inside of a school? The message I want to send to these bad guys is if you're going to come to a school, shoot or hurt one of our children, you're not going to surrender. Look at the movie theater shooting. The individual surrendered. Look at the church shooting in South Carolina. That individual surrendered. Look at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. He surrendered because all of a sudden they're not nuts anymore when their life is on the line.
Yeah.
So the message we want to send, if you're going to do that, you're leaving in a body bag because our response is going to be so quick that you're not going to have time to surrender. None of that bullshit.
I like it. So the detectives coming out, Detective Bureau coming out, they're getting assigned to the school areas, whether portable or trailer. What do you think about the school board and that relationship, that school board police?
Correct. Okay. So with that, I mean, you know as well as I do, you have 5 investigators for an area and multiple areas. They're not all going to be sitting inside the office. There might be times where nobody's inside the office. They're all on the street, but you're always going to have someone there.
Yeah.
Limited duty officers, let's get them inside schools. They still have a gun.
Yeah.
They're still there. Let's put them inside schools, inside the school offices, wherever. Why are they sitting at the station? They can do reports from a phone inside the policing agency. But the school board, we have to work with the school board system. And don't be fooled, guys, ladies and gentlemen. The statistics that you're getting from the school board, they're falsified as well. And what I mean by that, I had a friend of mine call me the other day. He got a ticket on 137th Avenue and Northwest 6th Street by school board police. And they were sandbagging the area. He was going 7 miles over the speed limit, and they gave him a ticket for speeding. Normally, agencies give 10 in case there's any leeway.
Yeah.
So what they're doing is they're writing 30, 50 tickets just for 5 miles over, 7 miles and over. And now at the end of the year, when their school board statistics show up, you're like, oh, shit, they're really protecting the kids. Because the vision is they're giving these to speeders inside school zones. No. School's out. Instead of sitting inside the school to send a message, oh, people see police cars there, whether it's summertime or not. You have to give that vision. No, they're going to sandbag corners out of a school area. They're out of their lane by doing that. Yeah, you're writing tickets or whatnot, but at the end of the year when they show their stats, people are going to think they're really protecting the schools, which they're not.
All right.
Well, I say it like it is.
I'm just saying.
I'm not a political guy, but yes, we have to work with them. We have to coordinate it. There's 400 some school board police. We have to coordinate with them and make it team effort. You've probably got some great officers, great command staff there, and we have to work with them. And we have to, like I said, kids are our number one safety.
I like it. What about transitioning over to now? And this is not really a scenario, but it's just there's a new bill that just came out, the HALO bill. I don't know if you have that up and ready. Mm-hmm. Okay, so she's going to pull it up.
All right. Let's see what the HALO bill is.
And I kind of we went over this before on this, but I just want to get your take on it, and I can tell you as she's pulling it up.
Okay.
She's too quick.
Okay. Yes, I did read this.
Okay, the HALO bill provides where is it at? Impede or interfere with the first responders' ability to perform such duty. So this is basically protecting the officers from being harassed out on scenes while they're in the doing their legal duties.
Okay.
So somebody comes up with a phone, or somebody just comes up. In general, now the officer has the authority to say, you can record me, but you have to stand 25 feet away. Before, they were getting their face, you're not going to do nothing, you're not going to do nothing. So now this bill just passed, and I'll read it here. says, boom, the bill provides that it's a second-degree misdemeanor for any person after receiving a verbal warning not to approach from a person he or she knows or responsibly should know is a first responder. So it doesn't only go for police, also goes for fire and paramedics, who's engaged in the lawful performance of a legal duty to violate such warning and approach or remain within that 25 feet of a first responder with the intent to impede or interfere, to perform the duty, threaten the first responder with physical harm. And that shouldn't even be there, because if you threaten me with physical harm, you're going to go to jail anyways. But or harass that first responder. So now you can take this person to jail. Before it was a little bit hard to do. Had to do a little bit extra. So what are your thoughts on this bill that just passed? Good, bad? Is it coming down that slippery slope of that First Amendment right to record them and taking away that
Nick,
stuff?
I hate to say it, but this is meant for ballless police officers and ballless sergeants. The statute was always there. Mm-hmm. It's called obstructing justice without violence. And if you look at that statute, it's pretty much the same thing. There's 4 criteria. Number 1, you have to disobey an order that's given to you by an officer. Mm-hmm. That person has to be in a legal authority, which obviously a police officer is. He has to be performing his duty, which obviously a police officer is. And I think the 4th one is you have to have knowledge that that person is who he says he is. Obviously, if you're on a traffic stop in uniform in a police car, that person has knowledge. Mm-hmm. I mean, crime scenes, homicide scenes, you have it taped off. You have some clown that comes in. We don't need this statute. Yeah, it's obstructing police, disobeying a lawful order, obstructing the police. So like I said, this is more for political purposes. Oh, wow, look at the governor here. But it's also maybe made for the officer that doesn't have balls. And I'm not saying anything against the female officers out there.
Hey, it's 2024.
You know what I mean?
Hey, it's 2024.
The Cuban cojones. I mean, you got to have a little power, a little nuts to get out there. So this is not needed. You know, if you have a supervisor that knows what he's doing, the first thing he should be teaching his guys is these are statutes, these are county ordinance, and they can go into place. Yeah, you might be able to flip this around a little bit and use some stuff, but it's pretty much like a loitering and prowling charge anyway. Yeah. It's just to stop the situation. You're not going to have any convictions by it.
There is, yes, and I think there might be situations where obstruction wouldn't fit the bill, and you tell me if I'm wrong. I'm a transit cop, right? And Miami Dade has the transit officers. They're up on the platform and they're walking, right? They're not actively engaged with a subject, but they're performing their legal duty. Knucklehead comes up and he starts putting the camera in the face, saying, "Hey, why is your shirt so tight? You do steroids? This and that and the other. Now I have to engage with you. You're not really asking me anything. You're just harassing me."
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
Would that fall under obstruction? Because I can tell you now, look, my legal duty is to be on this platform to make sure there's no suspicious packages, nobody jumping the meter. I don't know if they do that. I know they do it in New York subways, but nobody doing that kind of stuff. You're taking my attention away from me doing my legal duties. Would that be obstruction?
I think it is obstruction because they're actually taking away from your legal duties. And as long as you give him a lawful order, sir, stay back about 10 or 15 feet, you know, because you're there for a reason. Yeah. Like you said, a bomb or something else can go off. Yeah. You're there for a reason. I think it's all depends how you write it up. Right. And like I said, at the end of the day, there are not going to be convictions on this or the other one. They might get pleaded out, but no one's going to do jail time over this, just like obstructing. Yeah.
I think this is more. I think this is more.
But yeah, it's
clear cut.
Exactly.
For that situation where you have to write it up and then kind of like, you know, make those pieces fit together.
So look what it says: impede or interface with the first respondent's ability to perform his duty. Pretty much like an obstruction charge.
Yes.
It's pretty much the criteria that's there for obstruction. Threaten the first responder with physical harm. Well, like you said, not applicable. That's an arrestable offense. Yeah. That's even a felony right there. So you're not going to be charging him with that. You're going to be charging him with a felony. Harass the first responder. Now, does it have to have all these 3 elements or just one of them? Because harass the first responder, that's a good one. And then, it's going to be effective. You do have some clowns out there that are just, are having coffee, sitting on a police car, leaning back, and now you got the guy coming, drinking coffee again. Yeah. Okay, so stay 25 feet back. I don't really think that's far enough where he's still not going to be a pain in the ass. So, is it really going to matter any? He's still going to be yelling at you. I don't know. I come from the hard-nosed police work
you're
where
right. I'm
going down. You want to fuck around? Hey,
I'm with you on it. And that's what I'm saying. I'm with you on that.
But yeah, I mean, anything that we have in our toolbox is good. So let's get it. Let's keep it.
Yeah.
Maybe some of the policemen, the supervisors that, okay, now we can do something. We could always do something, but now it's a little bit more clear cut. So let's do it.
Moving on.
Let's move on.
You were a former city. Now here comes some sheriff stuff. The squatters, right? We don't deal with evictions. We call the county and say, we're gonna let the county come and handle this. So now we have the new squatter law, which I don't know why we even had to have this law, but it's a law now, right? So basically it says, here it is. She got it right there. Bam, look how good she is. House Bill 621, a property owner can request law enforcement to immediately remove a squatter from their property if the following conditions are met. The individual has unlawfully entered and remains on the property. The individual has been directed to leave the property by the owner, but has not done so, and the individual is not a current or former tenant in a legal dispute, meaning I couldn't have, I'm not a guy who was renting there, and then I stopped paying my rent. That doesn't make me a squatter. You have to evict me because there was some kind of contract involved. This is saying this person just saw a vacant property and they're going in. And
Correct.
now, before, you would have, as a homeowner, which is nuts to me, that somebody's in my property. I didn't give them permission there, but I got to go and evict them? Get it, bro. I was like, oh, yeah, they're going to have a new neighbor or a new tenant with them. I'm going to live inside there and make their hell, or I might even take matters in my own hand and probably have to go to jail. One or the other, defending my property. But now that this is here, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think any extra tool is good.
Right.
But is it going to make a big effect on the community? I don't think so,
right.
Nick. I think it's going to have pretty much maybe 2-3% effect on that. Why I say that is this is the difference between some candidates that don't have experience on the streets.
Right.
They've been in administrative positions. I've dealt with squatters being a neighborhood resource officer. The problem is that the club on Brickell, what happened is, and we're going to see it soon, is a lot of these foreclosures taking place from, when they foreclose on the units, these banks and stuff like that. So we had the club on Brickell. And what happened was part of the board, or it was a certain board member that knew all these places that were being foreclosed on and the people were being evicted. So now he goes and breaks the locks, and then he does an advertisement for renting the property with no authority to do so. So now you have a victim coming in with a legal lease, paying this guy that doesn't belong to his property. And the problem is now, I had it on the Venetian Causeway too, squatters that came in, they weren't trying to get out by the owner, they were trying to get out by the community because they were just you had homicide offenders in there, and then this is multi-million-dollar area.
Yeah.
I tried to get a hold of the bank. It took me I would say 6 to 8 months to try to get, the bank was in Philadelphia, somebody to take responsibility for that property to say, hey, they don't belong here, which would have been great. Then I could have went in with this statute and got rid of them.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do with the tenant now that says, Nick, you don't belong in my property, and it's a dispute? Well, yes, I do. Here's the lease. You're going to have a lot of that going on.
That's true, too.
A lot of that going on. Unfortunately, Miami-Dade County, we have educated criminals. It's not like the squatters you see that they break in. Hey, I'm not leaving. Oh, no lease. They come up with a lease from Office Depot. They come up with receipts. They come up with receipts, cash receipts for 100. They're not stupid. We have smart criminals. So do I see it being a major wow factor? I really don't see it as a wow factor.
Up until now, I haven't thought about that. That guy doesn't belong on my property. What are you talking about? We have this lease right here, and then you're like, oh, now as an officer, you're like, oh shit. They're saying, who do I believe at this point?
And everybody had a lease. When I went through that, on Brickell, everybody had a lease. Sometimes the victims are the leasers to somebody that just breaks the lock and goes in there. So it's a catch-22. I think it's more like a political platform that they came out with this. Is it a tool in our toolbox? Yes.
Yeah.
If we do get that one squatter, I think the only squatter I actually knew that said he was a squatter was Jimbo on the Rickenbacker Causeway. Remember Jimbo's back in the day? And they were waiting for him to die, and then they took that away. So Jimbo would have been out of there a long time ago if that was the case. But
all right, so
that's just my thoughts. I just tell it like it is.
All good, I love it. So moving in from the squatter stuff, because we're talking about homes, we'll talk about that homeowners association fraud that's going on, or is that part of your campaign that you're running on? Something like you mentioned in the beginning.
I do. Homeowners fraud. It's throughout Dade County. It's running rampant. I have a condo that I own on Miami Beach. I have another one that I own in Wynwood. My main house is west in the Durrell area. All in Dade County, by the way. All properties in Dade County. So I have a developer that's coming in. They put purchase agreements on the Miami Beach properties. Now you have condo fraud that's going on where they're doing false assessments, trying to build the reserves for the developer. They won't release engineering reports on the building. Arbitration that went on since last August finally finished, and the arbitrator says if they didn't give you your records, now you can go ahead and file civil action against them. This is a never-ending process for financial documents and stuff. But with that being said, you can go to my website, Giordano, 4sheriff.com, and I have a whole investigation I did with my private investigation company. You could read it, but the problem is we could do all this, and the state attorney's office don't do shit.
Yeah.
You call, you speak, oh, yeah, we'll take a look at it. Oh, yeah, we'll take a look at it. And they don't. So, you could do everything you want as a sheriff and a police department, but if you don't have the state attorney's office buying into it, and they'll do one or two cases here and there, just like the Medicare fraud people. They'll do one or two cases when you have thousands of them out there. So how do we get them to buy into it?
That's what I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Is that, or you have that, or is that something you're going to move?
No, you need them to be part of the task force.
Right.
You need at least somebody from the state attorney's office assigned to your task force doing this. And then they bring it back, and if they don't want to prosecute, well, why don't they want to prosecute? Now let's bring this in front of the media.
Okay, so you get the people involved, and then let's calm the people down, because that's who they got to answer to, because they got to get elected.
Exactly.
So, I like you squeezing them.
Squeeze them.
That's the Italian in you. Forget
Squeeze
about
them
it.
like peaches.
All right. This question comes in from AGC.305. Will you be changing the uniforms and also the cars?
Well, that's kind of a question that we will be changing the cars. As far as we're going to have one car, we're going to stop with all this car wrapping bullshit, and we're going to stop with all this nonsense that's going on. So I'm getting rid of, on day one, pink badges. I'm getting rid of the LGBT badges. I'm getting rid of all this other, Black History Month badges. And instead, it's not say, oh, I bigot already. No, we're going to have one uniform, one police car for all. And with that, yes, we can educate the community on what Pride Month is. We can hand a flyer of what Pride Month is all about. We can, if we give a ticket, we hand out a flyer if it's that month. If we, Black History Month, we hand out a flyer. Breast Cancer Month. Education, why not do... I said this in one town hall, and they were like, "Oh, breast exams. You call it monograms."
Mammograms.
Mammograms. I used it. I said breast exams we can give females. Everybody was kind of like, "Oh, well, I got my message out." As we talked about that before.
Wait a minute. The officers, or are you going to hire some professionals?
Some professionals. So we can give free monograms to female police officers. We can give it to the community. Why not do it at the station? Wearing a pink badge. If I'm a bad guy, and I see two officers there, one with the pink badge, one with a regular badge, and I just feel like taking one of them out, who do I think I'm going after? I'm going after the pink badge. All right. And this is sometimes you might have a domestic dispute, and I'm going to get back to his question. I'm just kind of going off on it.
You're like, I wanted to talk about this. Okay.
So I get to a domestic violence scene, and now you have an LGBT badge on, say, or Black History Month. Now you have this little child there, and what if you get in control of persons, and he looks up at that officer, all he sees is the LGBT badge, and now he has hatred because you beat his father, but he doesn't realize, and he's putting it towards the badge that you're wearing. I don't see too many agencies allowing departments or their officers to wear a badge from the Haitian community, or everything that's going on in Israel badge, or a badge of Palestine. So why are we isolating certain cultures, but yet highlighting some woke movements and woke cultures? We have to teach everyone that we are one community, one police car, one uniform. It's the law of unintended consequences. And I'll give you one scenario, Nick. Miami Police, they have an ice cream truck.
Yes, we do.
I went to the debut of the ice cream truck with my granddaughter, who at the time was like 6 or 7. Her response was, "Look at how cool Ampa," and it was at a car place that it was a car collection that they debuted the ice cream truck. "Look how cool, Grandpa." She calls me Ampa. A policeman serving ice cream. Her thing was, "Ampa, why does the ice cream man have a gun?" And she was frightened. Every time she would see an ice cream man after that, she was like, Ampa, let's hide. There's an ice cream man. He has a gun. So this is the law of unintended consequences that people don't realize. We need to go back to one uniform, one car. And, hey, I like snazz up some things. Sometimes change is better. The brown uniforms are a little, maybe old, outdated. I'm not too crazy about green ones.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would like to have maybe one uniform for all policemen throughout Dade County through every agency. That would be something to gear together with everyone and just, everyone look the same so they know it's a law enforcement officer out there.
Yeah, the car thing, even though that was like, I guess it vibes, but it's a slippery slope, like you say. When the other ones come knocking, when do you say no? At what point do you say, not you, but we'll do it for you, but not you? So it becomes a slippery slope. So just to have one representing everybody. The other thing is the ice cream truck. I don't know about the ice cream truck. I think you were reaching on the ice cream truck. The guy's giving out ice cream.
I'm not picking on the L there, the major there. But, I know you came up with that.
I like the ice cream truck. I even said, what about a cafecito? Turn that little cafecito, right. Bring out drive to the business areas around lunchtime, hand out cafecito to the people who have that community engagement. I mean, they have engaged. So I think they're doing the best. They're trying to do the best. Sometimes they don't see what they're trying. Their intentions are the best.
Their intentions are great. I'm not saying it's bad, but when does it stop?
Yeah.
And are you going to go in there day one and say, we're changing all the uniforms in police cars? I'm sure that's already decided now before that comes. Are you going to take away your budget in spending $1 million in uniforms and police cars when you already have some brand new cars and some decent looking cars?
Yeah.
Is that going to change the effectiveness? I don't think so.
Yeah.
That could be done maybe 3-4 years up the road, but not on day one.
Yeah, it could be that to change things up like that internally could have people say, oh, this is something new. Yeah, go, wow, this department's brand new because we got new cars or new something. It could symbolize that big change because if
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, somebody comes in and it's just like, oh, same shit, different sheriff. Like
plus the officers are going to feel different. They're going to take a little ownership. Now they got a different uniform that's on there. But then again, how many uniforms you're going to be throwing in the dumpster just to get
I agree.
effect?
Budgetary is going to be out of control. So it's just something
that could be changed within the 4-year period that you're there.
Yeah, so big budgetary. It's going to be that'd be a big chunk of money to come out and maybe unnecessary at the time. But like you said, little by little. All right, next question is from Watch Lucy Transform 3.0. How will you address corruption within the department?
Nick, I don't believe that the police agency should investigate their own criminally. Why that is, it's very hard to say impartial. Investigating somebody that's in your police academy, say, from 10 years ago, somebody that you go to family gatherings with, and now you're investigating them criminal. How are you going to do it impartial? Show up at a family gathering and not tell that person that you're investigating him.
Yeah.
Any criminal investigation, I think, within the agency should be done by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement with the Sheriff's Office, not within the Sheriff's Office itself. In return, I would recommend that we do the investigations on other agencies out there for a fee, and that could be a way to get money towards our police agency, but that's fair and impartial. Other than that, administrative-wise, yes, that has to be done internally with the officers and the supervisors there, for violations, not showing up on a call, not taking a signal, that kind of stuff. Corruption is always going to be in the police, just like it's going to be everywhere else. Unfortunately, it's the human factor involved, but how we're going to go after that is independent investigations by an outside agency.
Okay, I like it. The man with the plan.
That's
all right. And the last one is by our boy. He always thank you, True to Ant. Always chiming in with a question, and he says, "What do you plan to accomplish in your first year as sheriff?"
Well, the first year as sheriff. And that's going to be in my closing. So if you want to wrap everything up together, we're going to do that right on that question.
Boom.
Just smooth right in and right out of here.
Here we go.
So, like I said, school shootings, active shooters, realigning the police department strategically, relocating resources. That's number one. On day one, no other candidate has expressed anything other than running away from the immigration problem and crisis. We have over 350,000 immigrants that have come to Florida. We have about 1,500 a day that are crossing into Florida here. Now, they're not illegal immigrants. They're illegal once they disappear into the community. So they come across the border, they're given a cell phone, whatnot, they're given identification, but then they don't show up. So there's a reason why they're going to have pickup orders and why the government wants to get them out of here. A lot of the other candidates, they're refusing to address it. Oh, that's not our thing. That's not our thing. Trump, he says when he gets in 2024, is he wants to have local agencies enforce some of this. On day one, I want to sign a memo of understanding with Homeland Security under 287G, which is going to allow us to enforce some of these immigration statutes. With that being said, if Trump is going to reach out to local law enforcement agencies, he's also going to give them money.
Yeah, federal.
So we're going to turn down federal money and federal funds not to help enforce immigration, which might put 30 or 40 more officers on the street in uniform, in police cars that could address other issues while they're trying to identify individuals. If I get stopped on a traffic stop, they bring my driver's license, my picture comes right up. Why not have the tools in our toolbox to bring up, a person and get in the federal system to see who this individual is? To me, it's a crime. I want to see one of these other candidates explain to a family member of a policeman that's killed by one of these illegal immigrants that they had the power and authority that they could have gained by stopping this individual and being allowed to enforce some of these immigration laws. If they kill a policeman, if they rape a child, will one of these other candidates, if they win, go up to the family and say, look, I could have prevented this, but I refuse to do so? Then you have another candidate, but if they commit a crime, then we're going to go after them, we're going to deport them. Why are we going to wait for them to commit a crime? That does not make sense. I'm not saying that we're going to be running around, it's not our job to be rounding them up like cattle, but if we have that tool and we can go after them and they commit a crime, we can stop individuals. Instead of gun buybacks, why don't we do DNA buybacks? Get them out there, get their DNA samples, get them on file. We need to identify them. Who the hell are these people? Yeah. Type of thing. Like I said, they're not illegal, but once they cross the border and they disappear, now they don't have a Social Security. They're not reporting back to immigration authorities. They can't get a job. What are they going to do for money? They're going to commit crimes. Yeah. We need the tools out there.
All right. I think that's the first year. You want to take it?
No, I haven't finished. That's my.
Now you're going to take it home, though, is what I'm saying.
I'm going to take it home.
You got out of the hot seat, and you're in the cruising seat.
Yes.
Now. Cruising home. Hold on, let me change these lights. Congratulations. You made it out of the hot seat unscathed.
Okay.
You were brave. And you kind of shaved.
All right. So what we are going to do, as I said, immigration, that's on our platform. Another thing that we're going to do is we're going to stop these violent crimes. If you look at statistics, when individuals are released from prison on probation, within the first 3 years, 30% of them return back for committing violent crimes. Within 5 years, that percentage gets even higher. Well, when you're on probation, you give up your rights. You give up your rights, and if you're housing somebody that's on probation, you also give up your rights. We're going to team up with probation officers if we're not able to deputize our officers, and this is a task force, and we're going to do unannounced searches into these individuals' homes. We're going to make sure they don't have drugs. We're going to make sure they don't have guns. And if they do, they're violating their probation, and their ass is going back to prison where they shouldn't have gotten out on probation to begin with. They should be serving their sentence. And that's how we're going to cut down violent crimes. When I was a spokesperson in PIO, we had Captain Yee, a retired captain. He was a dockmaster on the Miami River, and human trafficking was coming in, drugs were coming in, and he started working with the feds, trying to tell who the offenders are, whatnot. They flew in somebody from Colombia, and they blew his head off. Yeah. Imagine retiring, and now you get shot and killed, going against immigration, going against drug traffic. They ended up catching the guy. He flew out to Colombia, and they ended up getting arrested for something else, and they went out there and they arrested him. So one of the things I want to do is, this Marine Patrol, they're working like 7 to 3, a 9 to 5 job. I want them working midnights on the Miami River, government cuts. You don't need a search warrant to go on vessels and search for equipment violations, to search for fish population. We're going to be searching for fish, all right, Nick. and if we see in our fish, that they're taking in kids or taking in children, or they got drugs or cocaine on there, we go in there with a drug dog, and we're in there looking at, do they have life jackets? I don't care if it's 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning. Their ass is grass. We could lock down the Miami River. We could lock down government cut pretty much 100% and stop every vessel coming in there. I don't see too many people going out there in evening, 12, midnight, 2 in the morning for entertainment purposes with their families. So there's a lot that could be done with that. So mitigate the fentanyl crisis, the drugs coming in here. I want to create one of the largest canine task force to go into UPS offices, FedEx offices, and sniff these things out. If we have a memo of understanding with Homeland Security and the federal government, then we can go into even postal services and sniff these things out before they come into our community. We have the opportunity to stop a lot of these drugs before they get on our streets. We're going to go after the violent crime offenders. We're going to go after the school shooters by locking down our school systems. And we're going to go after condo fraud. We're going to go after the mitigating of fentanyl crisis and drugs and public corruption. Yeah, we can have a public corruption unit, but just like I said before, it's all about the state attorney's office, and we have to partnership with UP.
I like it. To my Italian counterpart, you didn't know I was Italian, half Italian,
Yeah, how about
half Puerto
that?
Rican.
So if is this the ending?
This is what do you got?
Okay, well.
I was going to tell me where you can go to support, to donate, to join the campaign, all that jazz. Also,
Gotcha.
If you have something else you want to say, you got it.
Giordano, the number 4 sheriff.com. The reason I couldn't put 4, there's another paisan running, I think, in St. Lucie County.
I saw him.
That stole all the freaking platforms and stuff like that. So I had to use the number 4 sheriff.com. So how are you going to, remember me? You have your Pepes, you have your Garcias, you have your this, you have your that. So every time from here until August 20th that you have a lasagna, or you eat minestrone soup, or you go to the Olive Garden, don't think of, I want you to think of Giordano. If you go to the Olive Garden, think of maybe this is one of Giordano's descendants that's screwed up, because that's not that great a restaurant. Minestrone soup, think of Giordano. You have pasta fazool, think of Giordano. On August 20th, you better be thinking of Giordano. That's how you're going to think of me from here to August 20th. And Nick, as I say before, those are the messages that I'm getting from the spirits. So we'll see you August 20th, and I'll be on the podcast when I win.
I love it. What do you got there? What do you got there? Hey.
All right.
Hey, thank you for coming on the show. Excellent.
Wasn't that bad, was it?
It was great. It was great.
It was great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks again. All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.
All right. Sounds